Hey everyone, welcome back. I was thinking as I did the last video where I showed a couple books that were autographed that I had a box of nothing but autographed comics and magazines. Now, as soon as I pulled this out, I started thinking too that I probably showed all these at one time or another, and I might have actually done a dedicated video for autographed books or whatever, but I couldn't remember how long ago it was I did it. And but if somebody has watched this and already seen these, I apologize. But maybe there's some people that subscribe to me now that haven't seen it. So I'm just going to show them. And like I said, I apologize if someone's already seen all this stuff. But there might be something of interest to somebody in here. So I'll go ahead and get started. Uh, I don't go to as many conventions as I used to. I might hit a couple a year, and they're like smaller shows, just basically dedicated, comic dealers and the like. Anytime I do go, and there's like some little independent publishers who self-publish and trying to get started in the business, I always try to, you know, go around to their tables and maybe get a couple of books, and it's always good to see people locally that are trying to get into the business. But anyway, these aren't signed on the outside, but this is by a writer. His last name is Maddox. I'm not sure what the first name is, but they had some horror stuff. It's pretty cool. Anybody that likes black and white horror, it's nice stuff. Same thing here. I like the artist on this cover. But both of these are signed by the writer, and since anybody probably doesn't know him right now, we'll just let that go. Here's three books. These are from Image, and the writer of these, Matt Hawkins, really nice guy. Probably talked to him for 15 or 20 minutes, but he's been with Image a while. Well, this has probably been a few years ago, but he had a really cool sci-fi series, and it was called Symmetry. And you can kind of see he signed his name up there. It's number 1. Here's number 2. Number 3. It's a really nice cover. Yeah, for anybody that is fans of sci-fi, this is a great book. This is actually one of my favorites because this is from a local guy. His name is Chad Nuss, and he's actually, it's taken him a while to do these. I see him like at almost every convention they have in Lexington at our local con. But the guy's a great artist and a writer, and he got a great little series here called The Silence. You can order this. I think it's like thesilence.com or .org or something, but really great art and story. And he sent me a little note, said thanks for your support. Really great guy, and anybody that's a fan of, like, I guess what you call hard sci-fi, it's a nice little read. I'm probably going to have to divide this up into 2 videos because I don't want to make them run too long. But anyway, probably one of the first conventions I went to, or one of the earliest ones, was back in Columbus, Ohio, and Tom Skelly was there, and he did some stuff for Image Comics you might have heard of. Well, this is one called Freedom Force, and I'm not sure, this might have Jack Kirby might have started this. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but he did. He's like a big fan of Jack Kirby and models his style after Kirby. And probably what he's most well known for is a book called Godland, and he signed this one. Obviously, you can see the Kirby influence there. And he actually did a Commandy sketch for me that I can't find right now, but I'll try to pull it out later. For those of you that like watch some older videos, I had ordered all the Joe Kubert correspondence courses and went through those, and I think one of the inserts I got, it was signed by Adam and Andy Kubert. Okay, one of my favorite artists of all time is Mike Grail. You know, and everybody knows, you know, his work on the Legion superheroes and Green Arrow and John Sable and Warlord and all that. But here is an issue dedicated to the Legion, and there's a Mike Grell and Bob McLeod did the inks on this, and they both happened to be at the same convention. So there's Mike Grell and there's Bob McLeod down here. It's a great cover. And this one was signed by Bob Hall. It's a Marvel graphic novel, Emperor Doom. It's a great story. And this is probably one of the favorite pieces in my collection. Amazing World of DC Comics, number 12. This is dedicated to the Legion and sci-fi and all the alternate futures in DC at that time. It's kind of hard to see, but Mike Grell signed this one. This is probably one of the most expensive ones in that run of Amazing World. And another copy of back issue number 30. Shazam. For those of you that watched Shazam when you were a kid in the 70s, there was two guys that played Shazam, and I think the first one was I can't think of his name now. No, the second one I'm thinking about. But Jackson Bostwick was at a con, and he signed this copy of Shazam related back issue for me. Okay, let's dig into some more here. I was a big fan of the Animal Man series back in the 80s that Grant Morrison wrote. And one of the inkers that was on that series, Doug Hazelwood, he signed that one for me. This is my favorite issue, called Coyote Gospel. Anybody that's read this knows what I'm talking about. So, okay, some stuff from Mark Waid. His run on the Flash, issue 100. Legion of Superheroes number 0, more Mark Waid. Got some John Byrne. Here's Superman, second series, number 21, signed by Byrne. Alpha Flight number 1, signed by Byrne. This was probably one of my favorite things that John Byrne ever did, and from all reports and interviews I've seen, he really didn't like it, so go figure. But I love this series, at least the first 27 issues that Byrne did. I was lucky enough before he passed to get a couple autographs from Murphy Anderson. This is kind of a dinged up copy, but Strange Adventures number 221, and he pretty much signs his name like he signs it on the original art. Now there's the original art signature, and then here's the signature that he gave me. Really nice gentleman. Love anything Murphy Anderson did. Okay, and we have Gru the Wanderer number 5. Of course, this is Sergio Aragones. I think he signed this one on the inside. Pretty sure. Yeah, and he did a little cartoon down there of Gru. He was a really great guy to talk to. And here we have the Spectre, number 1. I guess this was like the 3rd series. Signed by the artist Tom Mandrake. More Mark Waid, Flash number 0. And one of the, I guess the first convention I ever went to, Steve Englehart and Marshall Rogers were both supposed to be there. But it turned out Marshall Rogers, he had to cancel because he was sick, and then just like 3 or 4 months later he passed away. I think it was cancer, I'm not sure. But Steve Englehart was there, and I got the I guess what he called the 2 most famous issues, but he, 475 and 476. This is 476, I think. Yeah. Signed by Steve Englehart. I love that run, Englehart and Rogers on Detective Comics. Got some Neal Adams stuff. This is another one of my favorite comics from the Bronze Age, one of my favorite covers. DC Special number 29, signed by Neal Adams. More Mike Grell, Batman 289. Okay, here's Avengers 213, autographed by Bob Hall. More John Byrne, Man of Steel number 1, first issue of the miniseries where they revamped Superman. And here we got one from Jim Steranko, Batman Black and White number 2. Steranko signed it right there. It's a great cover. Marvel Premiere number 6, signed by Frank Bruner. Okay, this is signed by Craig Boldman. He did a backup story in the back, and Craig Boldman did a lot of stuff for Archie Comics. And like me, he was a big fan of Sam Schwartz, who worked for Archie. And if you read a lot of the old Jughead stuff, you know the guy I'm talking about. But he signed this one for me. Amazing Man, number 12. Probably want to, you know, this is probably the most near and dear to my heart as far as my autograph stuff. This is Crypt of Shadows, number 11, and this is one of Marvel's horror reprint books from the 70s. And I'll have to pull this out, but Alan Bellman, who worked for Marvel back in the 40s and 50s, had a story in here. Find it, called Vampire Brats. It's about these little baby vampires. Anyway, he signed the bottom of that story, and actually he told me that the little girl, or the baby that was in the story, was actually based on one of his daughters. So I thought that was pretty neat, and as far as I know, I mean, Mr. Bellman, he's like up in his 90s, and he's still going around and doing conventions. I've got some original art from him and a couple of prints he signed, but really, I'm really proud to have this one. Crypt of Shadows, great title. Okay, probably show a couple more. Here's Detective 475, probably the most famous cover of the Englehart and Rogers run, signed by Steve Englehart. Longbow Hunters, number 1, signed by Mike Grell. Another Murphy Anderson, one of my favorite Justice League covers, number 77. He signed it down here. And I believe I'll cut this one right here. Okay, guys, I appreciate you, everybody that could stick around to watch this one. And part 2's coming up. Onward and upward.